What's going on YouTube? West Hobbies RC. So we are back with the MicroHeli 230 conversion, and we are going to start on the wiring. So in the last video you've seen us build the head, which is over there. We got the frame done, so I went ahead and threw the main gear and main shaft in for now just so I can run some wiring. It's really easy. You're going to slide your main shaft down. There's a collar here on top and there's a collar on the bottom. The shaft is keyed and you're going to slide it down just to where the shaft sticks out enough that you can put that bottom collar on first, or the top collar on. And right there with the two Phillips screws. You have a screw there and a screw there. And then you're gonna slide the main shaft down. Of course, you wanna use Loctite, and then you put the bottom collar on, and it goes one way, the bottom side. You push it on until it stops. Tighten everything down, and you are good to go. And then you can use this collar here, to adjust your up and down plate, but we haven't done none of that yet, and there's a little bit, but we can do all that. We went ahead, we got the servo horns put on, we just got the ball links on. They're not Loctite or anything, they're loose, but I will say these servos feel so smooth, super smooth and clean. Very impressed with these servos so far. Can't wait to power them up. So now we got all that done. So now we have the wires. The wires. So I ran them out this way, as you've seen in the frame build, and I think I'm going to keep them this way. But what am I going to do with them? I don't know yet. So I have some room right above the main gear there. I really don't want them on the outside of the frame. I would really like to try to keep them all inside the frame. FBL is going to go right here on this tray. So I do have some room in between the main gear and the boom block. I might have to keep them on the outside. I'm not exactly sure yet. I would really prefer not to if I can help it, but I put the main gear in so I can see how much room that I do have. ESC will go underneath the FBL there, and then we'll have to figure out where to run the wires for that. So I'm going to mess around with the wires a little bit. I'm going to get some measurements, see what we need to do, and get the camera set up, and we will start and go ahead and cut and shortening and heat shrinking these wires up. So my idea so far, and what I figured out with the wiring, pulled the main gear back out. I just needed to put the main gear in to see height that I had. So pulled all the wires back out. I ran some heat shrink. I'm going to push this all the way down to where it covers, heat shrink it. While it's hot, it'll keep it very pliable and let me rerun it back through where we had it. So now I'm going to do the same with this. Push the heat shrink up until it covers the wires coming out of the servo, heat shrink it, and same with this one. So all these will be heat shrunk together and covered, and all you'll see. So this wire is going to come through again under here, and these three wires are going to meet together. So now what I will do is, of course, I might have to shorten this one up a little bit, but I might shorten them all up a little bit on the heat shrink. Of course, shortening the wires. But once I get all these heat shrunk together, I will run all three wires so they are basically just like this, nice flat. Run another piece of heat shrink over all of them, and heat it back up while it's hot. It'll allow me to bend the wires and basically tuck them right up under here like this. I have just enough room right here, right on the other side of this carbon, to lay all three wires. Everything will be black so you can't see it. It will basically look like this, but completely hidden. So all three wires, everything will be black, and that will allow it to come out the back here where the 636 will be mounted, and then we will shorten them so it is just a direct plug-in, no wires, all the servos completely taken care of. And then later on, when we do something else with this helicopter, we might be adding a fourth servo, and then that will just be a direct run. May do something a little different with that, but we don't have to worry about that right now. Right now, we just need to get all three of these wires taken care of, and then the ESC, I have taken the heat shrink off, and as you can see, this ESC is beat up. It's been through everything. All the wires are cut, shaved. So I'm going to solder all new wires on. I'm going to extend the battery lead, reheat shrink the motor wires. Somebody has already soldered the tail motor wires back on, and it looks absolutely terrible. So I'm going to unsolder all of that. I want to shorten the tail motor wires a little bit, resolder them back on. We'll reheat shrink it. But the ESC is going to sit underneath the FBL tray about like that. So as you can see, we need to extend the wires about an inch, inch and a half. And then we still have to figure out how to wrap the motor wires to fit, because again, this is the 300X motor, so it is not made to be in this frame. So we don't have a lot of room. So we still have to figure that out, but one problem at a time. So I'm going to heat shrink these all down and get all 3 of these wires ran through here and get ready for the second piece of heat shrink, the main piece that will allow it to run this way. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll see what it looks like. All right, so we got the ESC all soldered up. We cut, shortened the tail motor wires to the ESC, resoldered them, looks much better. We ended up going and picking up some 16 gauge silicone wire, and we unsoldered the original battery lead off. Made it about 2 inches longer for now. Soldered them on. It's a little thicker, but that's okay. And the reason I made the wires thicker is because we're going to mount the ESC under the FBL tray about right there. And originally the wires would have been coming out about right there, so it would have been a little too short. Don't really want that, so made them a little longer. You don't have to. You can slide your ESC up when you do your kit, because again, you're going to have a smaller motor. The 230 motor is a lot shorter, so the ESC could really slide up here, right here, wherever you want it. I just want to put it back here, move some of the weight back, because I'm going to be running a 1300 3S pack and the bigger motor, all that. I want to kind of move the weight around. So I'm going to mount my ESC back here, extend my wires. I'll cut them shorter after I figure out exactly where they're going. Ended up getting the heat shrink done to the servos. So we have heat shrink from the servo in, same thing here, servo around. So now what we're going to do is we're going to nice and neatly put all 3 of these wires together like this. Another piece of heat shrink that'll run up, cover all of this up, and again, run up under the frame out. And then we will get the FBL mounted, see where we need to cut our wires, recrimp new ends on, run them in. Same with the ESC wires, get those shortened, run them in. And now we're going to heat shrink the ESC, which I got some heat shrink here. So we're going to heat shrink the ESC, put the sticker back on just because I want to, and get ready to start running the heat shrink over these wires. All right, so we got the wires heat shrunk together. As you can see, we ran them up and underneath the frame. One in here, and then we split them off, of course. So that is all done, running out the back. So I just kept the heat shrink hot, used my finger, pushed it up into place so it molds that. And now we're going to throw the main shaft and gear back in, make sure all that clears, and then we will start with mounting the FBL on its tray and seeing how long we need the wires to be. So we went ahead and cut the wires. We cut about that much off of them. So now that will give us a nice gentle straight run into the back of the FBL, give us a nice look, keep it clean. We have our end kit here, Amazon. Here's the part number for anybody that wants to get it. This gives you the both ends, male and females. These crimpers, they're about $20 and they are great. 3 different sizes. If you guys want to clean up your wiring jobs and make your helicopters look good, I highly recommend getting yourself a set of ends and a crimper set, and get yourself a roll of wire. That way you can make longer extensions, whatever you need to do. Luckily with these, we just cut them and shorten them. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to crimp new ends on. I've done this in other videos and explained it before, so I'm not going to waste your time and bother and make you guys bored by doing it again. So I'm going to cut the ends, or strip the ends down, get the new ends crimped on. We got the 636 mounted here. As you can see, I gotta say, these servos are so smooth. MicroHeli, these servos are incredible. Super smooth servos. And big spline too. The servo splines are huge for such a small servo, so I'm super excited to try these. The only other issue now I have is I have this super long antenna. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this long antenna. Like, this antenna is way too long. There's no need for it to be this long. So I got to figure out how to hide this and make it look good, because that just looks terrible. But we'll figure that out. First, let's get the servo end crimped on, get that done, and then we have to mount the ESC and figure out how we're going to run the motor wires and battery wires and all that good stuff. So let's get this done. All right, so we got the ends crimped on for the servo leads. Nice run straight into the receiver. We got the ESC mounted. We got those wires ran right into the receiver. Not the best, but not the worst. We still need to tidy up these wires back here, put a zip tie on them or something. ESC wise now, that's another issue. So with the 300 motor. Now again, this is no fault to MicroHeli's frame design. This frame is incredible. I highly recommend this frame for your 230. Guys, if you have a 230 and you want a great frame upgrade, get the MicroHeli frame. If you don't want to buy the whole kit, that's okay. At least buy the frame. It is super rigid, very solid frame. It will improve the flight performance of your 230. I can promise you that. And I haven't even flown it yet. But it is a lot solider. But anyways, so this is my next issue that I'm running into. So with the 300X motor, again, no fault to MicroHeli's frame design, but it's made for a smaller motor. So I want to run the 300X motor. I want more power. So it's a lot longer. As you can see, the 230 motor probably goes to about the bottom right here. So you still have all this room under here to run your wires. Might even be a little shorter. The 300 motor is big. It takes up every bit of real estate inside this frame. I mean, it just barely clears the frame sides. You have about 2 or 3 millimeter per side. So I decided to run the wires out the front of the motor, run them down and under to the ESC, and then again, I extended the battery wires. Battery leads, I extended them out only about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to zip tie it, I think, along the sides like this. I'll probably run some heat shrink just so that the wire is not rubbing on the raw carbon, even though it is pretty smooth. If I don't zip tie it, I'll just wet sand the edges because you don't want wires rubbing on the raw carbon. You can shave your wires. But I think if I zip tie the positive wire on this side nice and neatly, and I zip tie the negative wire on this side, so run them like this, and then I zip tie these wires together flat, and then maybe pull some back pressure to them, I think we will have a nice simple, it'll clear the motor because it's just barely rubbing right now. So it's not the ideal way. I definitely wanted it to be a little cleaner than this, but I am happy so far. It does look great. I can't wait to get this last bit wired up, and then all the main electronics are wired up. We can power up the servos. We can center everything and get the swash plate main gear put back in, swash plate, and then we can do all the swash plate leveling. So we have our swash plate here. We can do our leveling, get the head, incredible head thrown on it, and then we can move on to the mounting the tail assembly. We still have to do the tail motor mount the motor, run the wires through the boom, all that good stuff. But we'll figure that out when we get there. We're not at that point yet. So let's go ahead. Let's figure out what we're going to do down here. Let's get that taken care of. And then let's get an XT30 soldered on because I'm going to be running XT30s. And see how good we can get this to look. All right, so we went ahead and did it the best that I can think to do it with the 300X motor. So we have the wires run on the outside of the bottom of the frame here, running up to our XT30 connector. So everything is missing, not by much, but it does clear. Motor spins freely. So as long as it clears by a piece of paper, it's good as a mile. I mean, I don't even think you can get a piece of paper in there, but it clears. It's not as clean as I wanted it to be, but it's about as clean as I'm going to get it. I don't know if there's a way to do it any cleaner with the servo wires, the motor wires. Again, it's okay. I'm not 100% happy with the wiring, but it does look decent, so I'll give it that. But next step, let's go ahead and throw the main shaft back in. So I figured I would show you guys how to do this. So we have our main shaft, and then on our main shaft, we have two little parts here. So we have this little collar, and we have this little collar. So this little little tiny guy is what holds the gear on the shaft. So now we're using the MicroHeli gear that comes with the kit. So there's a one-way, no through bolt. And I gotta say, this gear is super thick. Like, this gear is strong, it's thick, way thicker and stronger than a stock gear. So I'm excited for that. So first things first, we're gonna take our shaft. Now, on the main shaft, you can use this with a regular gear. You don't have to use the MicroHeli gear, like if you just wanted to upgrade your main shaft. There's your through bolt hole there, but this is made, as you can see, we have a flat spot there, and a flat spot there. So we're gonna go ahead, slide our main shaft through the frame. And we wanna do this to where it pokes out the bottom. Let's move this arm out of the way so we can see. Okay, you don't wanna stay out of the way. So let's move you up over here. There you go, stay out of the way. So now we're gonna take this little collar, and you want it to where the screws are facing down, and you're going to want to feed this collar. Now notice inside the main shaft here, there is flat spot, flat spot, flat spot, flat spot. So these two flat spots here that are next to each other, it's going to line up with this flat spot, and then this flat spot lines up with this gear. So once we get it on, we won't be able to see this flat spot or this flat spot, but we need to make sure we get the screws tightened on the flat spot. Very important. So we're going to take our collar and we are going to push it up like this. I know you're not going to be able to see anything for now. Sorry, it's super hard to do this and for you guys to see everything. And then now we're going to take our main gear, and the main gear is going to go flat side up, just like this. Oh, we almost lost our collar here. You want the shaft to stick out just enough. We're going to take our main gear. We are going to slide it down into place. And then we are going to push the main shaft down into the gear like so. So now when we rotate the gear, we'll notice the flat spot. I hope you guys can see that. There's a flat spot right here. So we're going to rotate our little collar. Now, you need to Loctite these. This is very important. But for now, I'm not going to Loctite it because I'll probably end up pulling this back apart. So I'm just going to fight these screws, but you're going to want to tighten these screws up. Make sure they're on the flat spot. Once you get those screws tight, I'll do it off camera because it can be a little tricky. You take your little bottom collar and you slide it up underneath of the main gear. Make sure, again, your screw is on this flat spot. Tighten it down. All right, so we went ahead, got the main gear, everything Loctited, set the pinion backlash. Just a tiny bit of backlash is all you want. So pinion, everything moves, everything sounds good. It's very free. We have just enough clearance at the top of the main gear to the wires, which is all we need. I will go ahead and secure these wires up with a little bit of double-sided tape on the heat shrink just so they never fall down. We got the swash plate put in. So one thing I have noticed is that I'm going to have to take the spacers, one out of each here, out of each side here, to move this servo in and bring this servo in. Because if you look at the linkages, they are sent, of course, nothing is centered, nothing is, adjusted yet. But if you look, they are sitting inward. So the servo is pushed too far out. So when you push the swash plate down, the ball end is hitting on the arm. It's not good. Will it work? Yes. Is it good? No. So I want to move this servo this way, which take one. Remember, I have 3 spacers on this servo, 3 spacers on this servo, and 3 spacers on this servo. So I'll get rid of 1 spacer per servo here, which will shove this servo this way, bring this one this way, which will give me a dead straight line here. And then for the elevator servo, if you notice, which is very hard to see, but the push rod is sitting like this. So instead of it being straight down, it's sitting out, which is telling me this servo needs to go farther out. So we're going to have to trim this carbon plate a little bit, and we need to move this servo out just a tiny bit more, but everything is together. Now again, if you are putting all your stock electronics in, you won't have this problem, but if you're upgrading your servos like I am, these are incredible servos so far. I got to test a little bit, see the speed. They are so fast. It's crazy the speed of these servos. So I can't wait to fly this thing. But all the wiring is done, exception of the antenna. So this is what I need to figure out next, and we will wrap up the wiring part of this video, and we will move on to the tail boom, tail motor assembly, and get the swash plate leveler on here, get this thing leveled out, and get ready to install the King Cobra canopy. So close, so close. All right, so we went ahead, we got the antenna ran down along the side of the frame and out. This antenna is just so long, I don't know what to do with this thing. So for right now, it'll stay. Definitely probably gonna do something else in the future. I don't know yet. But we still need to zip tie these wires up or put a piece of heat shrink and tidy those up. I haven't done that yet because we need to run the tail motor wires down and out. But what we did do is we went ahead and we took out 2 spacers per servo in the rear, and that allowed our control links or push rods to be very, very nice. They're pretty much straight up and down. Again, we still need to level the swash plate and do all the servo adjustments, so we haven't done that yet. But our servos, as you can see, are moved. They were flush before. So if you notice, we have just barely enough clearance for the Now, of course, you don't need to run a nut on the back side of your servo arm when you're using aluminum servos or servo arms because it will thread right in. But I just put it on there for safety. If it became an issue, if there was clearance, I could take the nut off, but I don't need to do that. So we do have enough clearance. Push rods are very, very good. They're pretty much straight up and down, no binding now. So let's move on to the elevator servo. So I tossed a couple ideas here. So one, you'll notice with the 3 spacers per side, you will notice that the carbon plate bows outward, which is not, it's okay, but I would rather it not. But the main issue is the up and down of the push rod. It is not straight. If you can see, it is canted outward a little bit. So what I was going to do was I was going to add more spacers. Okay, which I can add 2 more. And I think that would be good. But what I think the ideal thing to do is, I think take the spacers out completely, put the servo flush against the bearing block, move it all the way in, because I think if I add more spacers, I'm going to run into a problem with canopy clearance. So it's going to keep pushing the servo farther and farther out, and this is going to hit the canopy because it's already pretty aligned up with the main gear here. So what I'm going to do, and what I recommend for everybody, is 2 spacers in the back if you're running these servos. And then I recommend in the front, no spacers, push the servo all the way against the bearing block and put your ball on the other side of the arm. That will move the servo this way, and that will give us a pretty much perfectly straight up and down push rod. So that's what I'm going to do that in a little bit later date. Right now, we are going to move on to the next part of the build. So the next part will be the tail motor. So now I still have to Loctite my screws and all that stuff. They're just rested in there. The other screws out for right now, so I can center all the servos and make sure everything is working like it should before I lock everything down. Now the next part of the build, of course, is going to be the tail assembly. So now I'm going to end this video off, but now the next part of the series will be the tail motor, mounts, and running your wires and all that good stuff. So for now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I want to give a huge thank you to MicroHeli for sending me this kit. I feel very honored for them asking me to build this kit for them and make a build series for you guys. So what I am doing, helping anybody who may be wanting to do the 230 build in the future. I highly recommend this kit, and this kit went together flawlessly. I mean, I didn't have a single issue with building the entire kit. Everything fit like it should. All the screws fit like they should. Everything was smooth as butter. The instructions, not the best, but that's what these build videos are for. So I hope if you guys are building this frame or the whole performance kit, again, you don't need to go with the 3-blade. You can go with the 2-blade. You can go with the 4-blade. Check them out. I'll link it in the description below. I'll link this exact kit that I'm building. But check out the website. Go ahead. See that you can buy each piece individually. I recommend if you're going to be doing the upgrade, just go ahead and buy the full kit. It's cheaper in the long run than buying piece by piece because you can buy the frame, you can buy the gear, you can buy the shaft, you can buy the head, so on and so forth. But if your plan is to do a full build like this, just buy the kit, save you money, and it is a quality kit that I highly recommend. So thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to wrap the wiring video up here. Next video will be the tail. Thank you again to MicroHeli. Take care. Have a great day.